Well, good morning. We're happy to be back in Northeast Florida. I'm bringing with me today Commissioner of Education Richard Corcoran, and I want to thank for being host at the classical school here by the chairman of the Jacksonville Classical Academy, Ambassador John Rood, head of school, Dr. David Whiffen, and then Jennifer Mills, one of the teachers, is here. Will also provide some insight. And then we got Representatives Byrd, Duggan, and Yarborough. So I want to thank them for being here. Thanks for their support, and look forward to them having a productive special session next week. We are going through to prepare the governor's budget recommendations for the next fiscal year. And fortunately, in the state of Florida, we're in a very strong budget position. Our reserves are incredibly healthy, particularly given what people were projecting when COVID first hit. Every month, we tend to bring in significantly more revenue over the revenue estimates, and that's a function and really a reflection of the strength of Florida's economy, and we're proud of what we've been able to do. We are concerned about the news that we see with inflation, with how much it's gone up year over year. We were told 6 months ago that no serious person said we were going to have inflation, and actually we know this inflation's real. I've been saying it for many months, and it does represent a threat to having a vibrant economy. It absolutely impacts every family's budget. And then you see things, staples, groceries, gas prices, all those things are really, really significant. Florida has stepped up. We've said we want to bring ships here. We want to do whatever we can to help with the supply chain, and we'll continue to do that. So our situation is good. We have a lot of strong fundamentals. You know, some of these national headwinds, I hope that they'll take this inflation seriously, do some stuff for relief on gas prices, because it's really, really important to a lot of folks. Nevertheless, here we are with looking at what we're going to do for the upcoming fiscal year and when we submit our budget. And we're still working on different parts of the budget, but I'm happy to be able to come here today and provide an overview of what our education budget is going to look like in the governor's budget recommendations. And excuse me, as many of you know, we've done an awful lot since I became governor. We've invested in increasing teacher pay. We've invested in early learning. We've expanded school choice. We've invested in vocational and technical education. And we really want to be able to keep that momentum going. And fortunately, we're in a situation where we can keep that momentum going. And so our education budget this year is going to have a lot of wins for families, for students, and for teachers. I'm proud to say that we will be including $600 million to continue to boost teacher pay. We've been doing that the last 2 years. We're going to be able to do it even more, and this is the highest level we will have done over the last 3 years. Our goal is to increase particularly the average minimum salary in the state of Florida so we can continue to attract great people into the teaching profession. When I became governor, the average minimum salary was around $40,000. Now it's close to $47,000, and with our proposal, we're going to be in a really, really good spot. Certainly one of the top 10 in the country, and we may even be in the top 5 in the country. We also had great success this past year with doing bonuses for our principals and for our public school teachers. The school year 2021 was unique because it was COVID, and we were the only large state to have schools open in person for the entire school year. And I think we had a lot of principals, a lot of teachers that worked very hard and did well. So we were able to do $1,000 bonuses for 177,000 total principals and teachers across the state of Florida. And I'm happy to say that we are going to be including those bonus payments in this budget for next year because we're still having to work very hard. I'm glad that we're in a much better spot on a lot of the stuff. Of course, here at Jacksonville Classic, they've been in-person, normal school from the beginning, but we've now gotten pretty much the whole state in a really good spot, and we want to continue to do that. So those $1,000 bonuses, I think, are very meaningful, and I think it's something that we want to continue to do. Our budget will have a record of per pupil funding. We will have $8,000 in per pupil funding. That's the highest amount that we've ever had in the history of the state of Florida. We will be increasing the base student allocation by $124. That is the largest increase in nearly a decade in the state of Florida. And if the legislature accepts our proposal, from the time I took office until now, we will have seen really, really strong increases in the funding. We're also going to be including $421 million for school safety and for mental health initiatives, and that includes money for school hardening grants, money for safety initiatives, particularly for our Jewish day schools, and of course the First Lady's been intimately involved with supporting mental health, particularly for our K through 12 students. And so we're very excited about that. We also are going to have in the budget $15.5 million to use to replace the FSA with our new progress monitoring system, and that'll be recurring funding because the progress monitoring tools are more interactive, they're more nimble, they provide more feedback in ways that are helpful for parents and teachers and for students. But we said that one of our major legislative proposals this coming year would be to eliminate the FSA and replace it with progress monitoring. And we're following through on that in the budget to make sure that we have the resources to be able to do the progress monitoring and do it in a way that is really value added and allowing more time for teaching, more time for learning, less time for testing, and more effective feedback for all involved. Also, we're continuing our commitment to civics and civic engagement. We're going to be investing another $500,000 into the Florida Civics and Debate Initiative to expand access to the program into every school district in the 2022-2023 school year. And this is in addition to the $106 million investment in civics education that I announced earlier this summer, which will provide teacher bonuses for any teacher earning the Florida Civics Seal of Excellence. And I think there's going to be a lot of teachers that are going to want to do that, and we think it's going to be a very powerful program. Also, to further our efforts to make Florida the #1 state for workforce education, we're including $534 million to support workforce education program. That includes $100 million for the new Workforce Development Capitalization Grant Program. That will create and expand workforce development programs at Florida school districts and at state colleges. And that's one of the things that I've been really insistent upon. People think workforce and they think sometimes exclusively state colleges. It's a great tool. We want to work with the state colleges, absolutely. I mean, if you're producing nurses and some of these other, you got to do it. But I also see huge opportunities for our school districts to be able to provide credentials and get some of their students that graduate from high school into jobs immediately. And these are high demand jobs, they pay well, and you're able to really make a good living without having to go into crippling debt. Now, in Florida, we're holding the line on university tuition. It's affordable. We're going to keep it that way. We're not going to let them raise tuition. And so we provide a good value for higher education, but there's a lot of places that don't. A lot of these schools cost a lot. They cost an arm and a leg. Kids go deep into debt, and then they end up with degrees in some instances that they could have had. They end up with degrees that aren't really paving the way for anything. They end up with jobs they could have out of high school. So this is important for workforce, and it's something that we are absolutely committed to, not just for people who are out of school, but within our school districts, making sure that students realize that they have a lot of different avenues to be able to succeed. So all in all, Florida is the education state. We now rank #3 in the latest Quality Counts rating for K-12 by Education Week, and we're ahead of the national average in almost all the individual categories, right, Richard? I mean, in terms of all the different things that you're doing. And that doesn't happen by accident. That's because there's been a lot of emphasis on this. We want to make sure that people have the tools that they need to succeed. We place emphasis where we think it really matters on things like early learning and early literacy. We're going to be having from our last session, we're going to have these books that are going to be sent out at the beginning of the school year. They're going to be utilizing those here at the Classical Academy. So we're really, really proud to place a significant emphasis on education. I think that to continuing to boost teacher pay, do these bonuses, make sure that we have workforce education, civics, all these things, replacing the FSA with progress monitoring. You know, it's a really, really robust agenda, and we're happy that we're able to do that. We're happy that we're going to have $8,000 per pupil. We're happy that we're going to be increasing the BSA, and we're happy that we're going to be able to continue to give Florida students the ability to succeed. So that's a great announcement. We have some other folks that are going to come up and talk about some other stuff regarding education, so I want to bring them up. So we'll start with the chairman of the board here at Jacksonville Classical Academy, John Rood.
Thank you, Governor. On behalf of the students of the school, the teachers, the parents, the administrators, I want to thank you for coming to Jacksonville Classical for this very, very important announcement today. The teachers, I have to admit, are extremely pleased with what has happened so far under your leadership. We're primarily first-year teachers, and our teachers have received over $6,000 per year in an unexpected raise. And it's something that is well deserved and very much appreciated. And I think all of us in the school love to hear the depth of support you are going to be providing and funding for the public education system. And we all know how important education is and how important it is to have, for the schools to have the tools to help the children get ahead. So for what you're doing, what you've announced, I want to thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, David, come on up.
I'd like to second that and thank the governor for coming today and for everything. Jacksonville Classical Academy is a school of more than 100 faculty and staff members, more than 800 students, and we draw our students from every neighborhood, every background in Jacksonville. And parents choose our school because we provide a tuition-free public education that aims to train the minds and improve the hearts of young people through a classical education in the liberal arts and sciences with instruction in the principles of moral character and civic virtue. So when I hear the governor talking about focusing on early childhood literacy and on civics education, I'm very excited about that. And I'm very excited about the support that we've received so far, but the emphasis on getting all students reading on grade level by the time that they're in third grade and getting the students who didn't get there caught up. The emphasis on developing civic knowledge and knowledge for citizenship, that's the kind of education that the teachers here are providing every single day for all of our students. So we're very excited to have the governor's support in that mission. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, and speaking of literacy, we have Jennifer Mills, who's a teacher here at Jacksonville Classic Academy.
Good morning. As a public educator, I'm very excited to hear that we're increasing funding for education. It's so important that every child has access to a high-quality education regardless of their zip code or their personal circumstance. So I'm very glad to hear that we're prioritizing education.
All right, Richard Corcoran, Commissioner of Education.
Thanks, Governor. First, I just want to say it's been an amazing run. When he asked me to be Education Commissioner, I wasn't sure it was going to be this much activity and this much of an agenda on a constant basis. But we always said, what changes education? And before I even get to that point, why is it so important? Education is the one thing left that will save our country, protect our futures, and bring about another 200 plus years of prosperity. So we know that. It's got to be an education. And then how are we doing it? Governor DeSantis from the get-go said ACT, accountability, we got to make sure that we measure, because if you measure, you care. Choice, we've got to give parents choices like we have here at Jacksonville Classical. And the third one is teachers. You got to go out there and you got to get the best and the brightest teachers. I don't care if you teach, you have a great teacher, they could be under an oak tree outside, not even in a building, and they can impart knowledge and truth and wisdom to those children like nobody else can. The one thing that we know, you put a child in front of a great teacher, and maybe they've had not had a great education, that one great teacher can change them in one single year. And so when you see this massive investment, and what does that mean? You take the entire Southeast, we're #1 in minimum teacher pay. You take the Northeast, we're tied at best, at a minimum for first. So now you're going to have all these people who want to come to Florida because they're going to get the best compensation and be in an environment where you have great accountability and you have great choice. And it's a game changer. So you look at these metrics that the governor's talking about. Accountability, what's our agenda? We went from 50th and now, as he said, we're #3. And accountability, he's not done on that. We're going to absolutely turn upside down the accountability system by getting rid of the FSA and going to a much more meaningful progress monitoring system where you're tracking these kids on throughout the whole year and making sure you can catch them before it's too late and then make the necessary adjustments. Choice, the massive expansion of choice. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank these legislators who have, under the governor and the legislature, the largest expansion of school choice in the history of the state. And now you have these teacher compensation and this investment in public education, the largest increase in the BSA in over almost a decade, the largest increase in our per pupil funding of $8,000, $188. You take the school hardening and you take the mental health, which, as he mentioned, is just been passionately fought for by the First Lady. They're almost essentially doubled in the time that he's been governor. These are just transformational things which absolutely, as our headmaster here said, these are things that transform the hearts and the souls and the minds of the next generation. And you want to know the best predictor of what the future of this country, what the future of the state looks like, if you can go back to Socrates, Hawk, Lobs, I'm messing it up, Hobbes and Locke, thank you. I was close. And even Lincoln, they would always say, if you want to know what the future of a country looks like, I can tell you that by showing me how you're educating your kids. Well, in Florida, we're educating them in a beautiful way to transform those hearts, minds, and souls, and the future for Florida looks great. So thank you so much, Governor.
So we're excited. I think that, and we'll be unveiling different aspects of the budget over the next couple of weeks, and the budget we will have probably within the next few weeks as well. But this is something that's really important. And so continuing to boost teacher salaries, doing the teacher principal bonuses again, having an increase in the BSA and an increase in the per pupil spending, having $421 million for safety and mental health initiatives, putting a recurring money so that when we replace the FSA, we have an effective progress monitoring system that's going to give real feedback to parents, students, and teachers, continuing supporting civics and workforce education. This is all really, really important stuff, and I think we're going to get strong support from the legislature. It's easier to do stuff like this when you have a strong state. And the fact of the matter is we've kept Florida open, we've kept people employed, we've saved people's businesses. This is the #1 place people want to come to vacation. We've always had good tourism, but if you look in August, we were 11% higher in hotel revenues than we were in August of 2019 pre-COVID. The rest of the country was down 5% over that comparative period. People know that they come to Florida, they're going to be able to enjoy themselves, and so we've been able to keep the engine going, and that provides us with being in a real strong financial position. Still very frugal, still very prudent about what we spend, always respecting taxpayers, but when you have opportunities to really make a difference, we're going to take that. And so I look forward to being able to work with the legislature on these proposals, and I think it could be another banner year for education in the state of Florida. All right, I'll take some questions. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, we wanted to ask you about a story that's been of interest to a lot of our viewers, these migrant flights to the Jacksonville area. Your spokesperson told us your office is aware of 78 such flights in recent months. She says state law enforcement has briefed the office about this. Which law enforcement agency is that, and can you provide specifics about these flights, when they landed, who was on board, how many?
So here's what happens with these flights. There's no notification to the state of Florida. These are done mostly in the middle of the night, and it's clandestine, and we really have no say into it. So what we're going to do, so I don't know on the top of my head everything, but we could provide. I know when we initially got wind of this, it wasn't through normal channels. It's people in the federal government who are effectively leaking this to us so that we have a heads up on it. I've talked with Mayor Curry. I've talked with my folks. We need to talk to the airport people. We're going to get together and figure out what we can do in the immediate term to protect folks in Florida. And then obviously, as the legislature comes back, I think about it, you have an open border in violation of U.S. law. The president has said that basically they want to even pay reparations to people who came illegally. Just think about that. You as an American, you get higher gas prices. You get higher grocery bills. You get told basically to just grin and bear it. Someone breaks the law, comes illegally, and they're going to cut them a check for hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is just unbelievable. But that's what we're dealing with. So they're not enforcing the law. I had people there to help Texas Governor Abbott. We had some of our state law enforcement there in June and July, and they did a great job. But what would happen is people would come illegally, our folks would apprehend, you turn them over to the feds, and then the feds put them on a bus and send them around, or put them on flights and send them all over the country. How is that something that's effective? So we have to look at that and say, we are suing the Biden administration over that. We have a pending lawsuit. I think we can be successful on it, but that's not going to happen overnight. Then we have to look at, okay, if these contractors are being contracted by the federal government and they're imposing problems on us. We had somebody that was murdered by somebody that was brought in by Biden. We should be able to have consequences for those contractors. And your ability to do business in Florida, I think, should absolutely be curtailed based on whether or not you're bringing problems or not bringing problems. And the fact of the matter is, this border should be secured. We know what to do because it was working prior to Biden taking office. So they should do that. But we are going to work with the folks here in Jacksonville. And the problem is, you know, the federal government has basically the runway when it comes to air traffic in this country. So I don't control the airspace. City of Jacksonville doesn't control the airspace. The feds control the airspace. So they can shut us out. Now, this lawsuit, maybe we'll get some relief from the lawsuit. But short of that, we need to get together and figure out ways to be able to do it. We knew, you know, one of the things that was concerning to me, and look, you can't prove any of this stuff, but, you know, they were bringing flights in May and June, we found out here. And why was that? And then Jacksonville, you know, you saw what they had to deal with some of the COVID stuff. So there's all these things. It's just like, why? Why not just kind of let folks alone? So there's absolutely going to continue to, we're going to have action across a wide variety of fronts.
If I may follow up again, which law enforcement agencies are providing this information, and do you have any details about the number of flights, when, the number of people?
So in terms of like each individual flight, I mean, I can tell you, I know that they started in May, and I know that they've continued. Whether they have the ledger of everything, I mean, you'd have to talk to my office about that. But our state law enforcement agencies are engaged in this. And again, this is not something that we're given ahead of time. This is something that we find out after the fact. And I talked with the folks at the Jacksonville Aviation Authority. Feds come in, they do it, they got a bus. You know, my view would be, why don't we, if they're going to come here, you know, we'll provide buses and provide them. I will send them to Delaware and do that. I mean, if he's not going to support the border being secured, then he should be able to have everyone there. So we will do whatever we can in that regard, and we are absolutely going to do everything we can.
Can you name some of those private contractors you're talking about, Governor?
Well, I could, but I'm not going to do it right now. I mean, I think that we want to maybe have discussions with some of them, because you have air, charter air, and then you also have buses, and I think we want to have some discussions. I'd like to get to a place where we're in a better spot than we are now. I mean, just think about it. If they're not going to do anything to change us, maybe we'll win in court, maybe we'll have something that pushes back. But even then, you saw what happened with the OSHA decision. It was stayed by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, meaning not in effect. And what did the Biden administration say to businesses? Ignore the court and follow our rule anyways. And so I think that they basically said, you know, to hell with these court decisions. They're going to do whatever they feel like doing. And so that's something that's problematic, because we can even win in court and they may disregard that. So we're going to do all we can. But there are definitely, I think, from a contractor perspective, we've really got to have a big conversation with some of those and then see what we can do in terms of this. Unfortunately, over the years, and we've looked at different things to do, unfortunately, over the years, federal courts have basically said illegal immigration is something for the federal government. You know, they have the jurisdiction. So when states want to go in and protect themselves, they have not looked kindly on some of those things. And I'm not sure that's the right decision, but clearly, if it's the federal government's responsibility, but then the federal government defaults on that responsibility, then the states still have their hands tied. I don't think both can be true. If it's a federal responsibility, then they have a responsibility to discharge the duties and enforce the law. If they're not doing that, then clearly I think a state should be able to come in and provide protections. And so that's what we're going to be looking to do.
Governor, two-part question real quick. When it comes to these undocumented immigrants, you say that they're coming in at 2 and 3 in the morning, late at night. Are we talking about by the dozen, by the hundreds, and are these asylum seekers? What are they?
Well, I think in the flight that is in question for the individual that posed as a minor, came in, was really in the 20s. I think that flight was one with people that were at least posing as being under 18. So what you do is you have people that are coming to the border, a lot of kind of like 16, 17-year-old males coming. They're treated differently than somebody that was over the age of 18. And so that particular flight was supposed to be, I think, what they call, UACs. And they were on a bus, and I think many of them taken to the Homestead facility down in Southwest Florida. And I know that that's been the case with other ones. Now we're also looking at buses from South Texas, where are those buses taking folks, and buses that are coming in to the state of Florida and certainly in other parts. It's interesting. If you're trying to deter kind of illegal migration in the interior of the country, if you come illegally and they don't catch you, it's actually in some respects worse than if they catch you, because when they catch you, they'll give you money or potentially put you on a conveyance to get you somewhere, whereas if they don't catch you, you're kind of on your own and you don't necessarily get any money from the government and everything. Really, really perverse incentives. All right, well, we will be back. I am going to be working. I've talked to the mayor, and so just let people know in Northeast Florida, we are going to work together. And we just want to make sure that our communities are protected. Thank you. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Do you need my? Yeah, sure.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us.
Go ahead. What's the number? 786?